Welcome to the First Read Ultimate Spider-Man podcast, where we break down Bendis' iconic run on Ultimate Spider-Man, issues 1 through 160 in Earth 1610. I'm Zach, and with me as always is John. What happens in Vegas? Oh, Pat.
Yep. I guess it doesn't stay in Vegas.
You did come back from Vegas, yeah.
That's true. We've got a good episode this week, Zach.
You think so?
I do think so. These were some pretty good issues.
Could you tell why I told you to take the first one?
You told me to take the second one. We did 62 and 63 today, right? And you told me to take 63. Uh-oh, we might have a bad episode for you today,
no.
folks.
I told you to take 62.
Well, I took notes on both of them, so it's fine.
Okay.
But my notes on 63 are better. We'll work our way through. Of course, the one time I come in and I'm like, we've got a pretty good episode this week. We fumbled it.
Okay, I just looked at my text. I did tell you to take 63, and I don't know why I did that, because I definitely was like, there's something pretty big that happens in the first issue here, and I want to get John's honest, first reaction of it. And then I just told you the wrong number. My bad, man. That's on
funny.
me.
That's funny.
Do you want to say it?
Say what? It happens once an episode?
No, what do we say when Marvel makes a mistake?
We got them.
Yeah.
But this time they got us, I guess.
It was a self-got.
Yeah. Well, whatever. Still a good episode, I think. How was your week?
My week is going good. So this is crazy. You know how I went to the only home Colts games so far this year because I've had a friend bring me. I rarely ever go to the games, and I was like, that was nice while it lasted, but I'm probably not going to make it to any more this year. And he even told me as much because they're like his family's season tickets, and he's like, yeah, my brothers are probably going to start claiming their games here soon, so I might not get to go to one for a while. And I was like, totally fine, understandable. And then, this has never happened since I've been working at my job. But, they just sent out a company-wide email. They were like, hey, we've got one Colts ticket to give away right by the sidelines at the 50-yard line.
Oh,
up front.
Nice.
Yeah, email us if you want your name entered for a drawing for it. And, of course, I won that. So, I'm getting,
awesome.
Season ticket holder experience.
So are you just going to go by yourself?
Yeah, it was only one ticket that they were giving away.
Will that be fun for you?
I think so.
Okay.
There's a coworker who also had a ticket. I think the coworker was already supposed to be going, and then they were like, oh, we have this extra ticket that we need to give away or whatever.
Oh, that'll be awesome.
But I could probably go
line.
Yeah. I could sit there by myself and
I know you're a big football guy. Well, that will be fun. Hopefully Jonathan Taylor doesn't come back, so my Zach Moss fantasy run continues.
Yeah.
Speaking of fantasy, big news. Zach knows in our league, Kyle Pitts, his favorite player, hit the waiver wire, and I had one free agent dollar left. And it was enough to swoop him up. Two people put $0 bids in, and my $1 bid got him.
There we go.
So I figured you'd be happy about that.
Well, you should be happy about it. You got him for nothing, essentially.
Yeah, and now he'll sit on my bench and take up a bench spot. It's great.
So how's your week?
It's been pretty good. Actually, Elizabeth and I have gotten some negative news. So should I say that now? I know I can't really tease that and then save it to the end. But
is it about the dog?
Did I talk about that on the pod last week, or did I just talk to you about that?
Made it in. You definitely told me.
So Elizabeth's dog, which is also my dog, but it was mostly hers, Lucky. He's about 9 years old. She got him on the streets of Mongolia 9 years ago. Picked him up as a puppy. That. Yeah, very, very cool. Picked him up as a puppy. He was sick as could be. Dogs aren't really they're kind of like vermin out there. So it's like, he's like a street dog. He's like dirty, and she picked him up and he was really sick and, he survived. And, but we did just find out in the last like week and a half that he had some cancer. And it's pretty bad. So we thought with chemo, it'd be about 4 to 6 months. We'd be able to extend his life. We went in for his first chemo thing this past Monday and found out that it's more serious than, just like cancer on the heart, which is what we thought it was, which is serious as it is, but it turns out it's like all over his body. So even with chemo, probably about 30 days. So that's really sad. It's really hard. It's especially hard for Elizabeth, but so if any listeners want to leave some positive notes, I told Elizabeth I'd mention it, and I said, oh, maybe some people will say some nice things,
Yeah,
so
I'm really sorry
I'm sure
to hear
it
that.
would cheer. Yeah, thank you. I mean, it stinks. I'm sure a lot of people have gone through something similar, losing a pet. So
Yeah.
I never have. So we've been crying a lot.
Aw. Well, if you're looking
so
for
I just wanted to share that with our pod family.
Yeah. And if you're looking for like a positive note or some kind of silver lining, I mean, it sounds like she gave him 9 really happy years that he wouldn't have gotten in Mongolia.
Yes, she did, and that's something I've kind of also said to her, at this point, which is like, well, she's got 9 years more than he would have if you didn't pick him up in the first place. So, but yeah, it stinks. It's going to stink when the day comes. So, but we're still trying everything, that we possibly can. But yeah. So anyway, we can get on a more positive note. You got anything more fun going on?
I don't.
Should we just get into Spider-Man?
Yeah, let's so there's a downer, here's an advertisement, and then up next is Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Every business says they're better, but the ones that earn and display the BBB seal back it up. It instantly identifies businesses that are committed to operating with integrity, honoring promises, and telling the truth. Makes you wonder why every business doesn't have it. So look for it, because it's looking out for you. That's why it's the sign of a better business. And find a better business anytime at bbb.org.
Okay, we're back.
We are back.
And and this is going to be fun.
This is going to be the wild, wild west, because we took notes on the exact same issue because of my mistake.
Well, I do have some notes on issue 62. So we can go through it. And I think they're still good. So yeah, we can get it pulled up also. And are we ready? Should we jump into it?
Yeah, we are ready. John, I just want to thank you for diligently taking notes on both issues, because I sure don't do that.
You're very welcome. Zach, this is my full-time job, okay? The Better Business Bureau pays us very handsomely to come on here and talk about Spider-Man.
Yes, and I bet they're very happy with the value you're giving them as opposed to the slacking I'm putting in.
Okay, so issue 62, writer Brian Michael Bendis, penciler Mark Bagley, inked by Scott Hanna and John Dell, colored by J.D. Smith, letters by Chris Eliopoulos. And oh no, we open on this science room at Empire State University, and Ben Rodley walks in, and the goo is gone. The red goo. Those are the kind of notes you get here when I'm writing, just to remember what happens and not to speak. So the goo is gone.
The fire fetus baby thing they were growing in a tube. And
Ben Reilly is like panicking. He thinks somebody stole it. He calls up Connors, and he's like, somebody stole it. And then as they're on the phone, there's a commotion in the hallway, and there's a dead guy there, and he's been sucked dry in the hallway. And yeah.
I was going to say, can you tell who the dead guy is?
A random unnamed janitor who won't be mentioned again.
It was the security guard that greeted Ben Reilly by name last episode that kind of chatted with him.
So when I say this guy sucked dry, I mean his face looks like he's been like a vampire has kind of, like taken all of his life force out.
He looks like when a little kid goes really hard on like a Capri Sun, and you can tell the wrapper is just trying to collapse in on itself. That's his skin.
So that's what the wrapper looks like. He doesn't look like the kid doing that. He looks like the Capri Sun.
Yeah, it's Capri Sun post-suck.
That's actually a great... Yeah, that's a very... that's perfect. Well put. So then we cut to Gwen and MJ who are at the mall. And Zach, if I skip over anything here, you're just gonna have to jump in and share small details, okay?
Sure.
So Gwen and MJ are at the mall. MJ got a job making French fries at some place in the mall, and she has a funny little mall outfit on.
Probably corn dog on a stick if we know Bendis.
I think that they do say where it is though, and that's not it, right? It's Big Easy Cajun.
Yeah, which actually sounds really good.
That sounds so good. I was thinking the exact same thing. Have you ever had Yats or Dats?
I love Yats.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Why'd you say Dats? Is that how it's supposed to be pronounced? Like in the...
No, there's like two.
Way?
It's like Yats, and then there's like in some places it's not called Yats, it's called Dats. Like in Bloomington at IU, it's not Yats, it's Dats. But it's the same exact place. Yeah, it's like how Rallies is sometimes Checkers.
Yeah.
Or Hardee's is
Carl's Jr.
Carl's Jr., yeah.
That's interesting.
Listeners, if you can think of any other places that are sometimes two different things, let us know.
What's White Castle in the South?
White Castle's not White Castle in the South?
No. Is that...
Is this a joke?
No, let me Google it. Hold on, I know it.
Dead air.
They don't know that. I've just misspelled the 4 times. I put it with a Y.
What is
White
the Southern Castle called? White Castle is called Crystal. Dude, that restaurant looks nothing like White Castle.
I know. I don't know
that
why
is
they
a
wouldn't
different
just have
restaurant. Yeah. I'm too heated about this to even talk about Spider-Man anymore.
It's a stupid marketing strategy. Just be the same restaurant everywhere.
Yeah, it's like how Dairy Queen and Culver's are, they're called in different places. One's Dairy Queen, one's Culver's.
That's absolutely not true.
Just trying to lie. Just trying to lie out here.
John, isn't it crazy that the Knicks and the Nets are like the same team?
Yeah, it's just depending on what part of the country you're in.
Yeah, it's wild.
Wouldn't that be better if it was the Jets and the Giants or the Knicks? Okay, let's rein it in. Let's do what I always tell my kids to when they're getting a little too off the rails. Let's rein it in, okay?
I could never be a teacher because I'd just be a hypocrite. I would be the one off the rails.
Zach, I'm usually the one that gets them off the rails. I'll start talking to the kids about golf. And then the whole class will get off task, and I'll be like, I want to talk about golf as much as the next person, but we got to do math.
Correcting your own mistakes.
Yep. Okay, so Gwen and MJ are at the mall. She's working at Big Easy Cajun or something or other. And Gwen is, they go and sit and talk.
Yeah, Gwen was buying socks and just bumped into her.
Yeah, and Gwen is like, I hate all these people at the mall, but she's there also, and it's pretty surprising to MJ. She's like, Gwen Stacy at the mall as I live and breathe, and then they go and talk because I guess they have some stuff to discuss, and they're kind of talking about Spider-Maning, and MJ's like, oh, I kind of worry about him sometimes, and Gwen's like, gosh, I never even would have considered worrying about him, or anything. And MJ's like, yeah, I even almost died. And Gwen's like, I never even considered we might be in danger. And And then Gwen is like,
and MJ says we're not. Did you catch that?
She's like, we're not really.
Which Peter I don't know anything that happens.
I mean, he better. He better not let anything happen to these girls.
Right.
So Gwen is like, hey, by the way, nothing's happening with Peter and I, obviously. I know maybe that's caused a little bit of tension. And MJ's like, what? We've never even discussed that. And Gwen's like, okay, I'm not stupid. Nothing's happening with us. Peter's like a brother to me. Aunt May's like a mom or a grandma, And I think that's really cool. I always say it, but I like how their relationship is like, they're like really becoming friends here. And it's not so much early on. It really seemed like Gwen was like maybe trying to steal Peter. And now it doesn't feel like that at all.
You were the driver of that bandwagon. I can remember.
That's what was happening. She's not doing it anymore, but it doesn't change that in the past she was.
So I just want to go on record. You would not, at this point, describe Gwen as conniving.
Not anymore. I wouldn't.
Okay.
But we've all had some conniving moments in our past.
Have we not? Amongst us.
And I'm sure Shiloh will tell you that teenage girls are brutal. Okay? They are the most conniving among us. Does Shiloh never say that?
I think she's more of the victim of stuff. And maybe this is me being the husband with like rose-colored glasses or whatever, but I just feel like she's always caught completely unaware by like other girls' drama.
I just know every time I talk to Elizabeth and I'm like, oh, the boys are being they're just so awful. She's always like, girls are awful too. You just don't see it. They just do it secretly to each other.
Heard that. They're sneakier.
Yeah.
So this is a sweet moment between these girls. It's
I can
blossomed from like a rivalry into kind of a cute friendship.
Yes. So we then cut to a man and a woman walking home, and the woman, it's kind of funny. We kind of meet up with them mid-conversation, and the woman's like, you thought I was going to break up with you because I didn't like the movie? That's so stupid. By the way, this all isn't in my notes, Zach. I'm doing this all on memory of the comic. So.
And you're killing it. I'm flipping the pages, and I'm like, yeah, he's dead on.
Thank you. And I actually flipped back to see if maybe we could see a marquee sign in the background to see what movie they were coming back from. I thought that could be like a funny little thing. No, we don't get to see it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But as they're walking home, they spot Carnage, and they're like, oh my gosh, is that a hurt child? We should go help it. And then Carnage ropes them up and sucks them dry.
And
just like he did to the security guard.
We're just kind of seeing him in a dark alleyway. You don't really see all of what he is. He kind of looks like a pudding man, or like, what are those really like dogs with the skin that just hangs over their face? He doesn't look like Carnage. He looks like
I have no idea.
He looks like a goober.
He looks like Clayface, maybe, or Sandman, when he's like trying, like a red Sandman kind of.
Yeah, I can see both.
But then once he does like eat them, then we get a full page of Carnage, and he's all carnaged out.
It's like the more life force he sucks in, the visibly stronger and scarier he gets.
Yeah.
But John, I was kind of saddened by these people's death. I felt like this was a real Hearth Michelson moment, because they were just like, you could tell they were having a super fun date, and they like cared about a hurt child, and then this was the thanks they got for it.
It's what makes me laugh there is the conversation opens with like, you thought I was going to break up with you, and Zach's like, they were having an awesome date.
Well, seeing a bad movie can be fun. I think it's cute that he was worried the movie was so bad she was going to hold it against him.
I could put myself in that nervous, like first date energy and like going to a movie and just it's awful and being like, oh, I blew it.
And here's the thing, I feel like we've all been in that situation.
Yeah.
I haven't even had that many girlfriends because I met Shyla pretty young, and I have had bad first date, like first dates at terrible movies, and it's like, well, you know, that
this isn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
One time I had a first date with a girl at the Colts Rams game years ago when it was like maybe during Andrew Luck's rookie year where we would like, I don't know, sometimes some games we'd just get annihilated, you know, and it was one of those games and I was like, this is going nowhere because it was not a fun game to be at all. So, and guess what? There was no second date. Okay, so I did say here, though, Zach, because I felt the same way, that it was like a Hearth Michelson thing, because Spidey, this is maybe going to be prescient for what happens later in the issue, but I wrote this in my notes. I said, Spidey's never around to save the normal people. He only shows up when his friends get in danger, you know? But whatever, I guess. I guess he can't be everywhere at once, but it's right. Like, you know,
he has saved many random people over the course of this series. He just isn't there for these specific people because he doesn't know to be.
Yeah.
Real quick, I didn't know when a good time to mention this would be. I actually am wearing. Yeah, watch this.
Oh my gosh, Zach has his. Those are Venom socks, right?
Carnage.
That's Carnage.
That's Carnage.
Like a black. What? Let me see it again.
Yeah. That's red, my dude.
But isn't that... Okay, I can't tell what it is.
It's red.
I can see the red. I thought it was Venom's tongue, like, sticking out.
No, that's because my foot was upside down.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Wow. Zach, should I mention I'm going to do it right now, but I actually have a little Nick Fury, like, what are those things called? Like
Funko Pop?
It's not a Funko Pop, but it's basically a Funko Pop. He's just sitting outside my house, guarding my house every day. And he hasn't fallen. He's been there for like 3 weeks. The wind's never knocked him off. He's good at his job, Zach.
That standing up?
Yeah. I know that's surprising.
Yeah, John texted me that, and he's like, Nick Fury's guarding my house. And I was like, your house has never been in more danger.
So back at the lab, the cops are there, and Connors comes back, and he and Riley are obviously freaked out about the murder. And that's kind of all I wrote for those scenes. So,
Detective Captain DeWolf is there, that lady cop that we met last issue. She's just kind of going to be around for a while now. She's going to be like the new,
Stacy.
George Stacy. Like whenever we need to see a cop say something, she gets those speaking lines.
So then we get this kind of interesting page of Carnage, and he's like remembering all of Peter's memories. And for a second, I was like, why does he have this link with Peter in the first place? But it's because they used his DNA, obviously. And he's like,
which remembering still Mary shouldn't Jane make sense because you don't remember through your blood.
Yeah, it's I don't know.
He wasn't
a little weird, but I'm
from
willing
a chunk
to,
of Peter's brain or anything.
Yeah, but here's something that I just noticed in one of the memories that might come up later is one of these panels. First of all, he like remembers Peter washing his hands for some reason. Like some of these memories are kind of random. But then right after it, we see Peter holding someone's hand, who I would assume to be Mary Jane, but she's got like 2 bracelets on it, and that makes me think it might even be Gwen's hand. Because doesn't Gwen wears have a lot of bracelets,
dangly gold bracelets, yeah.
And maybe we even see Gwen's hand like that with the bracelets later on, but we'll get to it. So Carnage is remembering all of Peter's memories, and then there's a next page, and he's seeing like everything, all of the villains, basically like everyone's Peter has met as Spider-Man.
It's like Peter's whole life. It even remembers things from when he was like a baby or a little kid.
Yep. And then the last thing kind of he sees is Aunt May's face. And then he like screams and starts swinging away. And I'm thinking presumably to kill Aunt May.
So I've got a question for you because this, I don't know, this stood out to me. In the big, beautiful page where it's all of the memories.
Yes.
Look at the bottom right-hand corner. What does it look like is happening in that one?
Well, Mary Jane looks jacked. I mean, like her shoulders look like bodybuilder shoulders in that.
I didn't think those were muscles. I thought that was her arms spread like this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But
I mean,
that is funny now that I can see what you're talking about.
They're probably like he's like about to kiss Mary Jane or something. Is that what you're thinking?
I couldn't tell if it was like they were about to kiss or they were about to do it. I'm developing a theory that this book has been written with the kind of subtext that they're having sex.
Oh, 100% they are.
Okay.
I don't even think it's subtext. I think we're supposed to know that they're having sex at this point.
Like I can pinpoint exactly when their first time was. It was the night that they got back together and she wrote him a love note and he jumped through her window. She was in like see-through pajamas and didn't even cover her butt. Yeah. And I bring this up just because there's going to be a later issue where they explicitly say that they haven't done anything yet. And I'm starting to think Marvel might have told them at some point, hey, you got to tone this down. You got to tell people that's not what was going on. But
I guess they haven't.
But it looks to me like in that panel, that's what's happening. And I could see that like shirt that she's wearing being that nightgown.
Yeah. Okay. I think they're doing it.
I think so too.
So Carnage is going over to the Parker household, is what it would appear to happen. So then we cut to Gwen.
Sorry, real quick, one other thing.
Yep.
So he's swinging, right? Like, he's not shooting webs. He's like shooting himself, like his own like tendrils or whatever, just kind of becoming liquid and sticky. And he's shooting it out of his fingertip, which is what we saw Peter doing when he had the black suit. And I think it's how Venom did it too.
Oh, so okay.
I just think that's interesting that like whatever is going on with like the Venom symbiote suit, they just shoot it right out of the fingertip.
Do you think that happens because they know Peter is Spider-Man and he does that? Or would they do that even if they've never seen a Spider-Man before? Like, is that mimicry?
Yes,
or
I think so.
Okay.
Because when he's in the first page, where he's doing memories, he's looking at his own hands and he's like remembering Peter's hands in the Spider-Man gloves.
Yeah.
So I think he's kind of internalized to some degree, like I am from this guy.
So Gwen is walking home and she's like, oh, I don't have my keys. I'm going to try to go in the basement door. Hopefully Peter's in there. And she's knocking on the door. She's trying to get in, and then Carnage shows up behind her, and it ropes her up, and she can like almost make out a face in the Carnage thing. Like the Carnage mask like opens up, and there's like a face in there almost, but we can't really make out who it is or anything. And it's beginning to suck her dry. And then I'm just waiting for Spider-Man to show up, and like now we get like a big human looking face kind of coming out of it, and then it just kills Gwen and throws her away. I mean, surely it didn't kill her. I don't want to spoil it for the next issue, but surely this isn't how Gwen Stacy just died. But the last panel we get, she is a very, very dead-looking hand with those 2 bracelets on it, which is why I mentioned the hand with the bracelets earlier. And it says to be continued. And man, that's a pretty good issue. Surely Gwen isn't dead, right?
This is why I wanted you to have the first of these issues, and I hate that I messed up and told you the wrong number, but yeah, I wanted to get your take on that, because that was exactly what I thought the first time I read it. And even knowing it was coming, I'm like, you're just waiting for him to save her.
Gwen isn't dead. She's still going to get saved at some point.
Right. But if she didn't, this is what it would look like.
But if she didn't, then okay, here's the sitch, Zach. This is a really exciting issue. Who's in the Venom mask? What was that about? I can't wait to find out. What is going to happen to Gwen? I can't wait to find out. Her and MJ just became like best friends. What does Connors think is going on? There's so many questions that I can't wait to find out. So because of that, I'm going to give this one an 8.5 out of 10. Victims suck dry.
Man, we're delightful today, aren't we?
But this issue takes a large hit if this is the last sighting of Gwen Stacy, because I don't like it.
Right. Sean, sorry, go on.
That's it. You go on.
Are you familiar with the term fridging?
Yes.
Or like women in the fridge?
But explain it to our listeners just in case.
Okay, so it comes from comic book writer Gail Simone. She published an essay called like Women in Refrigerators, because there's a really upsetting issue of, I think it's Green Lantern, where he like comes home and his girlfriend's decapitated head is in his refrigerator freezer, and the bad guy had killed her and basically put her in there just to taunt Green Lantern. And the idea is that this is a trope that sucks and happens specifically in superhero comic book stories, where a woman, it's like almost always a woman, gets killed just for the sole purpose of like giving the man something to avenge. And it's about like his storyline continuing over her like personhood, you know. Being in the story is less important than him having a reason to be mad. And so it's kind of this like feminist way of like looking at these specific stories and being like, well, that sucked because it didn't give this female character much agency relative to like the man in her life. And the original Death of Gwen Stacy story from like the 70s is kind of known for that. It's kind of like the golden example of that. And I thought we had done such a good job avoiding that in this series, because Mary Jane and Gwen are already pretty much switched in this series in terms of like personality and dynamics. Like, for all intents and purposes, Mary Jane that we have is like the classic Gwen Stacy. And when she got thrown off the bridge by the Green Goblin, and that's how Gwen Stacy was supposed to die, and Peter saves her, my thought was, cool, we subverted that trope that sucks. We're not going to have a fridging in this series. And it really, really sucks that we made it this far with the Gwen that we've come to know and love. And it seems like she still got that ending.
I'm glad you said it seems like it, because I do not believe that she's dead. Okay, we can go through the next issue, and I'm still not going to believe that she's dead. So, because we're only on issue 62 out of 160, and I feel like our conversations have alluded to that there is like a history with Peter's going to break up with Mary Jane and start dating Gwen, and then start dating Mary Jane again. And
Have I given that away in our conversations?
It's just been, I feel like maybe that's something I've insinuated from some of our conversations, which maybe is not the case, but
it might not be. I'm not saying that happens. I try to leave spoilers for you to find in real time.
Well, so what did you think of this issue? And let's talk about the next one, because it's hard to keep talking about this one when we know what happens in the next one and we aren't there yet.
Yeah. So everything I'm saying is it's like just gut reaction looking at this issue in
my gut reaction to reading this issue is there's no way Gwen is dead. Somehow they're going to, if this means that life force sucking thing, that doesn't actually kill people. That can be reversed somehow with the right string of events. Is what I'm gathering here.
I think you're going through the stages of grief. Anyways, I don't love what it does for, the remainder of the story, that it takes a good character off the board that we can't use, or at least, let me say, allegedly appears to allegedly. But you're right. It does give us a lot of questions to ask about, like, what is the Carnage entity? What was Connor's up to? How's he going to respond? What's Peter going to think? Who else is in danger? It's definitely up to the stakes. So I think I'm with you that it's probably like an 8 out of 10. But at the same time, I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate what it does to Gwen, but I like the execution of the issue, if that's the direction they're going to go.
Yeah, I think that if this is the end of Gwen Stacy, then she probably needed a little bit more fanfare, and that's going to really hurt this issue, because the way that she died like a nameless Hearth Michelson, I don't know. Something about that rubs me the wrong way. Maybe it's just, that's real life, right? Like sometimes, this thing just attacked and it got her, but I don't like it.
Yeah. Sometimes good people are just victims of things that they don't see coming. But it also does hurt knowing that she had just talked to MJ at the mall and Mary Jane was like, oh yeah, we're not actually in danger because Peter will save us if anything.
Yeah. And, I just wrote in my notes, like 5 minutes before that I read that panel of something happening to Gwen, I wrote in my notes, Peter's never around to save the random people. He just shows up when his friends are in danger. And then, 2 seconds later, right, something happens to Gwen and he's not there. So,
yeah. I will say, if they were going to remove her from the board, this would be the time to do it, because they've now wrapped up all of her big plot lines. They've wrapped up her rivalry with Mary Jane. They've wrapped up any romantic feelings she might have with Peter. They've wrapped up her dad. They've wrapped up her hating Spider-Man. Like, it was either kill her off or give her more things to do, and I would have preferred they gave her more things to do, but you can see where it's kind of coming from.
Gwen finally isn't dealing with trauma after trauma, so they just killed her.
Yeah, that's pretty...
By wrapping everything up, what you mean is like her relationship with MJ is going well, her relationship with Peter is going well, she's like on board with Spider-Man. Let's just kill her.
Yeah, it hurts for a reason, it's they didn't take her down at her low point. They let her fight through a lot of adversity and get to a good place, and then they took her away from us, and that hurts way more.
I'm a bit upset about how you're talking about this, because it sounds like she's not going to come back on us.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Are you clicking your pen?
No, I'm sorry. I'm playing with the tape measure. Sorry, listeners. That's going to be annoying. I put it down.
Maybe they won't
fidgeter.
Hear it. Yeah, I am too. That's why I rock like a child while we're recording. I'm actually sitting crisscross applesauce in my office chair right now.
Nice. Okay, 63. This is a cliffhanger.
Yeah, 63, the one we both took notes on. This is the same creative team. Aunt May walks into the house carrying bags of groceries, and she starts calling out for Peter and Gwen.
Hey, have you ever noticed what a cliche it is when somebody carries a bag of groceries that there's always a big old loaf of Italian bread just sticking out of the top of it?
That is
like
funny.
The first thing I noticed when she walked in with the groceries. Like, how often do people actually buy Italian bread and like have it sticking out of the bag like that?
Have you ever noticed that whenever people are carrying in groceries, it's like exactly two brown paper sacks without handles?
It needs to be like 14 plastic bags that they're carrying in one trip.
Yeah. I don't know that I've ever seen anyone grocery shop like this in my life. Maybe that's how they did it in 1950, but certainly not in the 2000s.
No, yeah, you've got plastic at that point.
Yeah. Honestly, I could see...
We got him!
Yeah. I could see May being a Whole Foods shopper with her reusable tote.
Well, I could see her having her own bag for sure.
Yeah. So anyways, she comes in carrying groceries and she's calling out for the kids, and she looks out the window and sees something that makes her scream and runs out the door and around the corner of the house and finds Gwen's corpse. And
man, this is also so awful to show. If she really is dead, I don't like them showing her like this.
Yeah, it looks a lot more final in this issue. I could definitely see someone reading the last issue and thinking, oh, they're going to find her clinging to like an inch of her life. No, you get to this one and she looks like one of the skeletons the kids find in the Goonies.
Yeah.
Like she looks like she's been dead for 100 years.
Yeah.
And Aunt May starts crying and saying, Gwen? Oh, no, please. No, not again. And we cut to the office of the Daily Bugle, where Peter is happily reading the current front page that accurately reports on how he heroically stopped the Punisher. And, of course, he's thinking, hey, Jameson is kind of changing his tune about me. Maybe things are looking up for old Pete.
Which we know, because of the Spider-Man happiness spectrum, that something's about to go wrong.
I was about to invoke the Spider-Ness Happy Man spectrum. Yeah. Happens once an episode, folks. I was about to mention that too, so I'm glad you did and actually said it right. So of course, right then, Peter gets a call from Aunt May, who breaks the news to him, and we don't hear her side of it. We just see some panels of Peter's face dropping as he hears the news. And he is so shaken, he immediately swings home without even changing into his costume. He's just in his street clothes and with his face out. And when he gets there, he sees emergency vehicles and police tape around his house. And he walks into the backyard where they've covered Gwen up with a blanket. But she's still just lying there in the grass. And detectives are interviewing May. And when May notices Peter, she calls to him and runs up and gives him a hug. And while they're like greeting each other, a detective steps in and just starts interviewing Peter. And he's kind of asking some I
kind of feel like you maybe buried the lead on the main part of these panels, which is Gwen is under a black sheet on the, like, she's basically in a body bag. Like, she's like dead. I don't know how they're going to bring her back, Zach. But they're going to do it somehow.
It looks profoundly final.
I mean,
the old adage, like, in fiction, they're not dead unless you see the body. We've seen the body now several times, and it looks very dead.
Yeah. I don't know how they're going to bring her back, but they had better.
All right, Bendis, you heard it.
Yeah. 20 years later, you better bring her back.
If you haven't yet, you better start begging Marvel to let you. So a detective starts interviewing Peter.
What's going on with Peter? Sorry to stop you again, but that panel with where we can see the sheet over her a bunch of different times. What's going on with Peter's eyes there?
I was just thinking about that.
Like, I don't know. That's done for a reason, but they're like, there's just nothing behind them. It's just like black behind them. Like, it looks like, I don't know. What is that? Like maybe someone who's being possessed? That's how they sometimes look. Like,
it reminds me of Gorillaz. Have you ever seen like their music videos?
Yeah, I have. Yep.
Yeah. There's just no light behind his eyes. I think that's the metaphor. Is like, you know, he's going through it.
Oh, poor guy. Poor man. Poor Gwen.
This is such a sad episode. I really hope no one's going through a bad time listening to this, because that would suck. But yeah, so a detective just like jumps in to their conversation and starts interviewing Peter, and he's kind of asking some like leading questions.
Oh,
like,
he thinks Peter killed this girl.
He's like, "Oh, so were you guys like romantically involved? Where were you at just now? When was the last time you talked to her? Have you fought with her lately? Do you have an access to a weapon?" And
he doesn't ask the last ones. But...
and Aunt May is like, "What the hell is wrong with you? Peter, go inside." And she's like, "How could he have done this to her? Look at her. Like, what do you possibly think she died from? She's like had all of the liquid out of her like sucked dry." And Police Captain DeWolf arrives at the scene and tells the other detectives that this is just like cases that just happened elsewhere in the city. And Peter hears her say
go on, and then
first victim was found in the science building at ESU.
Okay, that's conversation, while being necessary to the plot, is one of the types of things that annoys me, because why are these police officers talking so loudly that this young child, which is what Peter Parker is, he's a child, is like right next to them, able to hear everything that they're saying? Like, go to a private place before you're talking about the murder victims and how they're similar to other murder victims in the city, you know? But obviously we need Peter to hear this so he can be like, you know, put two and two together.
Well, especially if this one cop actually believes that Peter might be like a suspect in this, why are you telling him about other cases? Like, he doesn't need to know that.
Yeah.
Are you suspicious of him or not? So Peter goes inside and he goes to his basement and holds his green backpack in his hand. And he's just so mad. He rips the whole thing in half and reveals his Spider-Man suit and web shooters. And I don't know about you, John, but at this point I thought, oh, okay, he's about to mask up and go find whoever did this. No, he just ripped his backpack because he was angry.
Yeah, and then he starts crying into it. It's really sad.
It is very sad. And later we see May, Peter, and Mary Jane in the kitchen. And May calls the last phone number she ever had on Gwen's mom. But the person on the other end says she isn't there. And they're clearly asking questions that frustrate May, like, is this Mr. Stacy? And eventually May screams into the phone, well, if you see her, could you tell her that her daughter, who she abandoned, is dead? No, I'm not joking. What kind of a joke is that? She's dead. Dead as in dead. And she hangs up. And Mary Jane's mom comes into the room and says that May and Peter can stay with them as long as they need so they don't have to be in the house where it happened. And later, Peter is getting ready to sleep on the Watsons' pull-out couch. And Mary Jane brings him some pillows and they start talking. And she tells him she stashed his costume in her closet where no one will find it. And John, I thought this was just in poor taste. She tells him she wishes he could just sleep with her in her room.
Well, so that was one of the things where you're like, I think they're trying, the subtext is that they're getting together, and it's like, yeah, they obviously are. That's not subtext.
This was one of the more heavy-handed examples.
Text.
Right. But you would think Mary Jane would have this common sense to know, hey, not tonight.
Well, it doesn't mean that she's like, they're just...
Zach,
I get what do you want to like sleep next to Shyla if like something just happened like in your home where... Right, this could have easily been MJ that... It's not like that thing was trying to kill Gwen, probably. I mean, we don't really know its intentions, but probably would have killed whoever it first saw at the house.
That's true.
Yeah. So I'd want to sleep next to Spider-Man too. Shoot.
It clearly knew who Gwen was. Like if it has Peter's memories and it's willing to kill Gwen, then it would probably be willing to kill Mary Jane or Aunt May.
Yeah, and something about, I don't know, I hope we get a little bit more on what was happening with like the mask when it was like opening up and like forming a face and something. I don't know what that was about, but
I think that was her face. I think as her actual physical face was becoming less defined and more shriveled up, it was gaining more of a face.
Oh,
I think it was like literally like absorbing her.
I was hoping it was like Eddie Brock or some shit.
Oh no, I don't want that dude sucks. He tried to groom her. I don't want his face to be the last thing she saw. That would make her death more sad.
That's true also. Yeah. But it's really messed up if it like steals her face. I don't know. I don't like this at all.
Carnage is icky. It's just it's so scary that like we can't even understand what is driving it. Like how aware is it of what it's doing? It's just kind of like a force of nature.
Oh gosh, Zach, this just reminded me of like one of my favorite Doctor Who episodes. Can I talk about it?
Yeah, go ahead.
There's a Doctor Who episode. I don't know. Maybe like a couple of our listeners watch Doctor Who. Which, by the way, next 60th anniversary comes out in like a month and a half. It looks like it's going to be really good. But there's this awesome episode. It's called Flatline. And it's about these like creatures that are like two-dimensional. And basically, this is like what they do. They like take bodies of like the three-dimensional people. And then they like use them to like do whatever they need to do. And that's how they like kill them. So they not only kill them, but then they like steal their forms, and it's just pretty awesome. And then the Doctor obviously gives an awesome speech at the end and wins, and it's great. But people die, it's real life. Doctor Who's real life, just like Spider-Man. Sometimes people die.
Yeah.
And that's a great one, Flatline. If you're ever interested in watching a Doctor Who episode, that's one you can watch on your own and be like, oh man, this is good.
Those actually sound like some pretty scary foes, and
they are. And the way they're like computer, I don't know, or the way they're, it's obviously not like real people walking around, but the way they're like CGI'd, it's very unsettling. They're like glitching around in like 2D, and it's a pretty cool one. It's one of my favorites.
That reminds me of like one of the few Doctor Who episodes I've seen. It was like, I'm sure you'll know exactly what I'm talking about right away, but it was like, if you're looking at the thing, it's like a statue, and it's not moving. But if you look away, it gets closer to you.
That's another one of the best ones.
It'll eventually kill you. Yes. Yeah. Those things were creepy.
Is that episode you saw? Do you know, is it called Blink?
Dude, I don't know what it was called. Okay. I know it was the Matt Smith Doctor.
Oh, well then, no, that's not it. Well, there's some good Weeping Angel episodes for like all of the Doctors.
That's cool. I didn't know they were like a recurring villain.
Oh, they're one of like everyone's favorites.
Yeah, those guys, they were creepy, but I liked them,
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, so Peter and MJ are talking on her couch, and she's like saying all these things to him, and he's just kind of despondent. He's like, yeah, okay. Like, almost catatonic. And MJ tells him that she thinks she was the last person to talk to Gwen, and that they had a good talk, and she thinks they would have ended up becoming good friends. And then, like, the first thing Peter says is he doesn't think he was a good friend to her at all. And this is really sad, John.
Zach,
I almost got choked up.
I did. I think this is the most, like, well-written, like, realistic thing in the world that would come to his mind.
He starts crying, and he says, what's the point of what I do if I can't stop the people And then he can't even finish the sentence. And so he just breaks down, and MJ holds him for a while. And you can tell I mean, we all know exactly what he's thinking. He's Spider-Man. He should have been able to stop it.
Yeah. He even tries to say it twice, and he just can't get the words out to you. And yeah, it's very like realistic that's what you'd be thinking in that
I'm not
situation.
saying he should be blaming himself, because he obviously shouldn't be, but every single one of us who's in that situation would be feeling that way.
Yeah.
And then we kind of get the sense that some time passes because Mary Jane is like gone, and he's awake thinking about what the police said. And he thinks about the fact that they mentioned puncture wounds, and they said it might be a mutant. And I liked these panels because he just starts visualizing, kind of like how Carnage was visualizing Peter's memories. He's doing that to his own memories. He's thinking about all the people he's encountered who would leave behind puncture wounds. And he pictures Wolverine and Doc Ock and the Green Goblin or Kraven killing Gwen. And then he remembers them saying it looked like a vampire. And he remembers meeting Blade, and he remembers Venom. And then he thinks about the fact that they mentioned the Empire State University Science Building. And he's like, oh my God, it was Dr. Connors. And he looks outside the window, and guess who he sees standing right in front of his house at that moment?
Pretty convenient.
And John, I think we got him because I can distinctly remember in other parts of this series.
Is this where that Mary Jane lives in relation to their house? Is that what you're about to say?
It absolutely should not be.
Definitely not. They are not that close together, are they?
They're not across the street neighbors. They're like down the street or maybe a couple streets over. They're definitely neighbors, but they're not across the street neighbors because he's ran down the road to get to her house before.
Yeah, and you know, this window he's looking out of, it's not even across the street. It's like across the sidewalk. Like we definitely got him.
And it makes it sillier that Mary Jane's mom would be like, hey, I understand you guys want to get out of that house where it happened. How would you like to come next door?
Yeah.
Like, that's not better.
And it makes it even sillier that Connors is just like in a trench coat standing outside of this crime scene, like looking sketchy as hell at the house. Like,
it's definitely not a good look for him.
No.
That's the wrong place to be at that time. So Peter goes outside and runs up, and Connors is like starting to say, oh, Peter, there you are. And he just decks him in the chin and like sends him on his ass. And he picks Connors up and starts bitch slapping him while yelling, what did you do? You killed her, you animal, you killed a girl. And poor Connors has no idea what he's talking about, and he begs him to stop.
But he should. It's totally absurd that we're going to believe Connors doesn't know what's going on right now. Someone at the Empire State Building died. And then, he shows up to Peter's house when there's a crime scene, and we're supposed to believe he's not smart enough to, like, figure out what's going on? Like, you know. Yeah.
You're right. Surely, he really shouldn't have needed a 15-year-old to spell it out for him.
No, this is going to be on the news, or like there's got to be. Obviously, there's not like cell phones with Twitter or something at that time, but there is some way where Connor should be more in the loop with what has happened today than he appears to be.
Yeah.
But he's been hanging out with his boy, is what he says, isn't it?
Yeah, he's like, oh, sorry, I was distracted by, my visitation day or whatever. Yeah, I think it's just proof that, like, your place in academia doesn't necessarily mean you're smart. So yeah, Connors begs Peter to stop hitting him, and he starts to explain that there was an accident at the lab. And Peter says again, "What did you do?" And I'm just imagining him like doing the Batman voice. I know he's like Spider-Man, and I know he's not trying to disguise his voice or anything, but I just feel like he'd be so angry. It's like abnormally deep. And Connors comes clean about the experiments he was doing on Peter's blood and says, well, nothing was working, so I dug up some of your father, Richard Parker's, old notes. And he essentially... Here's the thing, John. In the last episode, he's like, look, it might take forever to work on your blood, but we've got to try. He gave up after like a month of no results. And he was like, so anyways, I looked at the notes that made Venom, and I basically remade Venom using your blood.
Yeah, and he's also like, first we did a bunch of experiments with your blood, and nothing worked. And then we did a bunch of experiments with your blood and my blood together, and nothing worked. And then, we dug up all your dad's stuff, and this happened. And Connors is supposed to be a good guy. Isn't he supposed to be letting Peter know as he's doing these types of things? Like, that's what he said he was going to do. And now it's like he's been doing so much without letting him know.
Well, John, I'm glad you mentioned that, because my very next bullet point says Peter calls out Connor's hypocrisy of talking about morality and responsibility and then doing something like this. So it's not lost on him either. That's everyone's first thought. And apparently Connors didn't even know the organism killed anyone else. He just came to tell Peter that it escaped and killed the guard. And just then they hear a rustling in the leaves, and they see Carnage walking through the shrubs towards them. Roll credits.
Wow. Pretty these were pretty good issues.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to Google if Gwen survives. I'm just going to keep reading these issues, and I don't think she's dead. I'm going to put it out there that I think somehow she's coming back. I don't think that this is the end of Gwen Stacy. Zach's like laughing at me in his head here. He's got a good poker face going because he doesn't want to spoil anything, but I don't know. I'm just going to be really bummed if it is, I was really starting to like Gwen.
Yeah, I think we all were. So out of 10 lawsuits that are surely coming Dr. Connor's way, what would you give this issue?
You want to know my grading scale also? I'll tell.
What's that? Oh, yeah, because you made one too.
I did. My grading scale was out of 10 of my favorite characters dead.
That's so sad
we
to
can
think
do
about.
Out of lawsuits. Yeah, so I'm going to do a 7 out of 10 lawsuits, and if Gwen finds a way to survive this, I will be willing to bump this all the way up to an 8 or even an 8.5 out of 10.
I think I'm going to give it an 8, and something I've really liked here. So we've poo-pooed on them before when they do like that wall of text on the side of pictures that we don't like, so we've really deducted points before for like bad visual storytelling. I gotta give credit where credit's due. I think the panels of Carnage remembering juxtaposed with Peter remembering were just beautiful. I mean, those were like so detailed and bittersweet and interesting, and like tell you so much without any word balloons.
Yeah. If there is something in these two issues that probably does speak to the fact that Gwen is dead and she's not coming back, it's that they seem to have really thought these issues through. Because we get that conversation with Mary Jane where they specifically talk about, I would have never even thought we were in danger. And, and then that obviously, we don't know it at the time, but right, that's foreshadowing what happens later in the issue. And then something I didn't even pick up the first time I read it is in that Carnage memory scene, we see that the shot of Gwen's arm with her bracelets, and then that's the final shot that we see of her in that issue, which I don't think that's an accident. I don't see why else they would have put that into memory if unless to kind of foreshadow that as well. So I think they really took their time with basically everything they put on the page in these 2 issues. So I don't know. She's probably gone, man. She's gone.
Oh no, it's setting in.
But one other thing that I'm glad you mentioned when you were talking about the wall of text, some of these pages are very text heavy, and even some of this issue is kind of text heavy, but it doesn't feel like it at all. I don't think
it's well paced.
Definitely, and it's interesting enough, and there's enough being said that you're not just waiting to read this big long block of text and flip to the next page. There's actually everything that's being said. They put thought into it, so you need to read it and read it carefully.
I'm looking at the page of Aunt May trying to call Gwen's mom, and there's some pretty busy word balloons where she's on the phone and she's just going off about how horrible this woman is, and it even feels fast paced because you can tell that she's mad and she would be rattling these words off. So it's a long, couple sentences, but in reality she's saying it like that.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you kind of read it faster or perceive that it's happening faster, and it doesn't feel like she's giving a monologue.
Yeah.
Also, another thing about that picture of Peter holding what we assume is Gwen's hand, something that I find really interesting and nuanced about it is I'm looking at it and I can't tell if that's him holding her hand or shaking her hand. So it could be him meeting Gwen and it's a friendly platonic thing, or it could have been, oh, we held hands once and there might have been a relation, there might have been a future romantic interest there.
Yeah, I don't know. That I would have assumed that was Mary Jane until the second time we read it through and I noticed it, after.
And this issue wasn't even the first time we've seen Gwen in those bracelets. I mean, she's worn those throughout the whole series.
Yeah. I'm excited for next week's. I'm really hoping we find a way to bring Gwen back.
Yeah. Get the finale of Carnage, and you know what? After this, I really want to see Peter pummel him.
What's he even pummeling? It's just like a goo. That's kind of the other thing that is maybe a little bit sad about her death and who's killing her. It's not like the Green Goblin threw her off the bridge and Peter has a villain to go and mess up, or
That's true. He's probably
not even it's just a goo that's been created in a lab. It's this is not there's no humanity, right? We don't know Venom. We don't know anything about Carnage's motivations or because
right.
He's just a goo.
It probably can't feel pain or remorse or anything. So even if Peter defeats it, there's not that catharsis of justice.
Yeah, exactly. It's okay, well, it's not like anyone's sitting in jail for this or anything. It's just a thing.
Yeah, man, this just sucks. The whole.
Well, no, it doesn't. They're gonna save her in the next one.
All right, you heard it here first, folks.
You can't win Game 7 without losing the first 3 games. Okay,
or some combination of them,
or something. Yeah.
I like that. Gwen in 7.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Do you got anything else on these issues?
No, I don't think so. Are we doing 64 and 65 next week? And that finishes off the Carnage thing?
That's exactly what we're doing.
Okay. Perfect. What else do we have for the listeners here?
Oh, boy. John, so I
actually have a couple of things.
Oh, good.
Okay.
I made sure to get at least one fun thing.
Yes.
Because I knew what these issues were going to be. I've been listening to some stand-up comedy on YouTube at my desk at work throughout the day. Just makes it go faster. and I don't even know the comedians or whatever. I've just got some channel on my recommendations, and it's like I'll click whatever title sounds like it might be funny. And today I heard this lady talking about how she used to date an NBA player, and she said she got a call from this NBA player a few years ago, and she thought, oh, he's like interested in meeting back up or something. And instead, he's retired, and he's become a Jehovah's Witness, and he was calling her to tell her that she should repent. And basically the joke she was like, buddy, you've in my mouth, and I like, what makes you think that, like, why am I the person you're calling about this?
That's
and
funny.
She said, yeah, when I was writing this joke, my husband said, babe, do you know how many retired NBA players are now Jehovah's Witnesses? And she's like, no, why? And he's like, I Googled it, and it's 2. And she's like, so for when you guys go home and Google this afterwards, it's the light-skinned one. And so she basically tells you who it is. And people have like looked into it based off.
Oh my gosh! Well, what now? There's 3. It looks like.
Don't. I was gonna see if you could guess who it was.
There's no way I ever would have guessed this in a million years.
People believe the prevailing theory is that this lady was hooking up with Danny Granger.
Danny Granger,
Indiana Pacers legend, Danny Granger, and that's where I was going with this, because I knew that was someone that John would know, but never would have suspected of this.
Never. Oh my gosh. Well, you know what's that's so comedian Brittany Schmidt. Oh man, that's funny. You know, out of this list of 3 retired NBA players, there's Danny Granger, Darren Collison, and Dwayne Dedman. 2 of those are retired Pacers. Yeah, exactly.
That is so funny.
That is.
I'm
a big Danny Granger fan.
But I just thought that was so funny, because I'm not really an NBA guy, and I looked it up like, there's no way I'm going to know who she's talking about. And then sure enough, it's like
Danny Granger,
one of the pinnacle players of our city from the last 15 years.
That's funny.
All right, what was your thing?
Well, that's comedian Brittany Schmidt, if anyone wants to listen to her. Okay, so my things, Zach, there are 2 shows that I'm getting into at the moment. One of them is The Boys spinoff, Gen V. Have you heard of this?
I've heard of it.
Okay, so I knew it was coming out, and every time I'd like see anything about it, I'd be like, whatever, I don't. They're just trying to like cash in on The Boys. I'm just gonna watch The Boys. I don't care about this little teenage suit, whatever. Oh my gosh, it's really good. Definitely worth watching. They've done 3 episodes so far. The 4th one's gonna come out tomorrow. I couldn't recommend it enough. I'm like hooked. And it's got me so ready for The Boys as well.
You know what my fear always is when they do those spin-off shows, but the main one is still going? Is that now there's like splitting their focus, and then the first one almost always drops in quality.
I'm hoping that won't happen, and because the show is so good, The Boys that is, I don't think it will. And there's only there's not the same characters, you know. Like there are occasional, like in these first 3 issues, like
cameos.
Yeah, but it's mostly like just people on like the Vought side. Like the president of Vought shows up in both. But like the boys are not going to show up in this show at all, I don't think. Nor are like the big heroes, you know. But it's just the first 3 episodes were really good. I'm excited for tomorrow. And then, Zach, do you know what show comes back tonight? 1 hour from now, actually. It's going to air.
I don't even have a guess. Tell me.
Loki, season 2.
Oh, really?
Yep. It's coming back tonight. So I'm very excited. I'll probably, instead of watching the football game, I'll probably watch that when it comes on at 9.
Well, John, I have been so tuned out of like TV shows lately. I'm trying to be more of a reader. And look at you just telling me about 2 shows that I actually do like and keep up with.
2 shows.
Loki was good, and that's an increasingly rare thing for the MCU nowadays.
I was just thinking the exact same thing.
And The Boys is always a treat, so I might have to tune into both of those.
I would recommend watching. Well, I can't recommend Loki because I haven't seen it yet, but I assume it will be good. Tom Hiddleston's great. Owen Wilson's great. Yeah, I think it'll be really good. And then Gen V, I would definitely recommend checking out if you like The Boys.
Yeah, and it's kind of like a school thing, right?
Yeah,
am I correct?
It's like, it's kind of like this would be like the school for X-Men, but it's set in the Boys universe. So obviously they're not being taught by Professor X, and
right.
It's
So I'm guessing there's probably more of like the like a public relations side of it. Like
that's like all that's like their first.
Instead of
that's
actually
so funny.
helping people.
That's so funny you say that, because like their first classes that they go to are like intro to public relations and stuff like that.
Right.
Like that's like exactly.
Branding.
Yes, I think that's what it is actually. I think it's branding.
Oh my god. I knew it.
That's pretty awesome. Good. You got anything else?
I don't.
Are we done for the week? I don't think I do. Hey, send in some nice comments for my wife Elizabeth about her dog. Say sorry about that. It'll make her feel good. She's having a hard time. Okay. Don't want to
send her
too much, but
my condolences as well.
I definitely will. Yep. Yeah. Lucky gets his next chemo appointment this upcoming. No, it's every like 3 or 4 weeks. So we're kind of even crossing our fingers he like makes it to the next one. Anyway, I won't end this on too big of a downer, but Zach and I are buds, so I like to tell him what's going on, just in general. So,
yeah, and I'm always happy to listen.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you to Ian Hickey for our music and Alyssa Seaman for the artwork. And thank all of our webheads for listening and leaving us a review or a comment. We actually have been getting more reviews and comments lately, which are fun to read. So you can find us on the First Read Ultimate Spider-Man podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, or anywhere else you listen to podcasts. And you can come chat with us and leave us a message on Instagram at First Read Podcast. Send us an email at firstreadspidey@gmail.com, and find us on YouTube, First Read Ultimate Spider-Man Podcast at Ultimate Spider-Man Podcast. All right. See you next week.
See ya.